First, let's begin with some context. The 1983 Washington quarter was minted in large numbers, with over 673 million struck at the Philadelphia Mint and over 500 million at the Denver Mint. There were no proof coins made at the San Francisco Mint for circulation in 1983, as that year's proof sets were made entirely at San Francisco using different processes. So the standard 1983 quarters found in circulation are business strikes made for everyday use. Now you might be wondering, why does a 1983 quarter sometimes appear with a black or dark shade? These coins were not intentionally made this way by the U.S. Mint. In fact, the black coloration is typically a result of environmental exposure or chemical reactions after the coin has been in circulation for a long time. Factors like heat, humidity, oxidation, or even contact with certain materials can cause the coin's copper-nickel surface to darken or turn nearly black. In some cases, the coin might have been buried, exposed to fire, or subjected to artificial toning by individuals hoping to make it look rare. Because of this, a black-shaded 1983 quarter doesn't automatically make it a valuable error coin. Most of the time, coins like this are considered damaged or environmentally toned. They generally hold no extra numismatic value unless they also feature other collectible traits like a mint error, off-center strike, or high-grade condition. That being said, 1983 quarters themselves do have some collector interest, especially in higher grades. That's because no uncirculated mint sets were released by the U.S. Mint in 1982 or 1983. That makes high-quality business strikes from those years a little more difficult to find in pristine condition. As a result, a 1983 Washington quarter, graded mint state 65 or higher by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC, can be worth significantly more than face value. Prices can range from $20 to over $500 depending on the grade and demand. Now let's talk numbers. If you have a typical circulated 1983 quarter with black toning and no significant errors, it's likely worth only its face value, 25 cents. However, if your coin is in exceptional condition with full luster, sharp details, and minimal contact marks, it might be worth getting it graded. Mint state examples without toning have sold for $100 to $200, and those with extremely high grades like MS67 or MS68 can go for even more. On the other hand, if your black-shaded coin also has a verified mint error, like being struck on the wrong planchet or showing doubling on the design, it could command a much higher price. Some known 1983 error quarters have sold for hundreds, and even thousands of dollars depending on the type and rarity of the error. So to summarize, a black or dark-toned 1983 Washington quarter isn't necessarily rare or valuable on its own. Its color is most likely due to environmental exposure, not a special minting process. However, 1983 quarters in general do have collector demand in high grades due to the absence of mint sets that year. And if your coin features an error or is in mint condition, it could be worth much more than face value. Next up, the 1966 Washington quarter was part of a major shift in U.S. coinage. Prior to 1965, quarters were made of 90% silver. But by the mid-1960s, due to rising silver prices and a coin shortage, the U.S. Mint changed the composition. The 1966 quarter was struck using a clad composition. That's a copper core sandwiched between two layers of copper-nickel alloy. This new format eliminated silver content completely, and that's one reason why many 1966 quarters found in circulation today don't have much intrinsic metal value. In 1966, over 821 million Washington quarters were minted, all without mint marks. That's because, during the years 1965 to 1967, the U.S. Mint temporarily removed mint marks to discourage coin hoarding and speculation. So whether your 1966 quarter came from Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, it won't show a mint mark. Now, if you're holding a 1966 quarter in bad condition, let's say it's heavily worn, scratched, or stained, it likely won't be worth more than its face value. In circulated or damaged condition, these coins typically trade for 25 cents. They were made in huge numbers, and without silver content, there's no melt value to consider. However, there are a few exceptions to keep in mind. First, error coins from 1966 can be valuable. Some 1966 quarters have been discovered with minting errors, such as off-center strikes, doubled dies, or coins struck on the wrong planchets. For example, a 1966 quarter struck on a nickel planchet or with visible doubling can sell for $50 to several $100s, depending on the error and its condition. These are rare, but always worth looking for. Second, 1966 quarters in high, mint state condition, coins that have never been circulated and still have full original luster, can be valuable to collectors. If professionally graded by PCGS or NGC as MS66 or higher, they can fetch $30 to over $100. The highest grades, like MS67 Plus, have sold for several $100s at auction. But if you've got a quarter that's seen better days, the value remains low unless there's something unusual about it, like an error or a rare die variety. So what should you do if you have a 1966 Washington quarter in bad condition? It's a great opportunity to learn about coin grading and what makes some coins more desirable than others. It might not be valuable now, but it's a piece of history from a key moment in U.S. coinage when silver was removed and mint marks were temporarily eliminated. That makes it worth hanging on to for educational or sentimental value, even if it won't bring a big payout. Next up, the 1974 Washington quarter was minted just a couple of years before the United States celebrated its bicentennial. It was a time of high coin production, inflation concerns, and no silver in circulation coins. So what makes the 1974 quarter special? Let's explore. First, a bit of background. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to honor George Washington's 200th birthday. By the time we get to 1974, the quarter had already gone through one major change, the removal of silver in 1965. So, like all quarters from 1965 onward, the 1974 version is made of a copper-nickel-clad composition. That means it's not made of silver, and its base metal content is worth less than face value. In 1974, over 800 million quarters were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, with no mint mark, and over 350 million were struck at the Denver Mint, marked with a small D on the obverse, next to Washington's ponytail. There were also proof versions minted in San Francisco, bearing an S mint mark, but those were not intended for circulation and were sold in special proof sets. Now, let's talk about value in fine condition. A 1974 Washington quarter in fine, F12 grade, shows moderate wear. You can still see all the major design elements like George Washington's hair details and the eagle's feathers on the reverse, but they are flattened. These coins are common and easy to find in pocket change or old coin jars. In this condition, the coin's value is generally just 25 cents, its face value. That's because there are so many of them still in existence, and they don't contain any precious metal. Even if the coin is decades old, it's not considered rare or especially collectible in average circulated condition. However, if your 1974 quarter is in higher grades, like uncirculated mint state condition, it could be worth more. Coins graded MS65 or higher can sell for $5 to $20, while those in exceptionally high grades like MS67 or with eye-catching luster and strike quality can sell for $100 or more, especially if professionally graded by services like PCGS or NGC. There are also rare errors from this year. Some 1974 quarters were struck on the wrong planchets or showed doubling of the lettering or design, known as doubled die errors. These are quite rare, but if you spot one, its value can rise significantly, sometimes selling for hundreds of dollars, depending on the error and condition. So what should you do if you have a 1974 quarter in fine condition? While it likely doesn't carry any special value to collectors, it's still a great way to learn about modern U.S. coinage. Keep it if you enjoy collecting by date, and definitely inspect it closely for any signs of errors or unusual features. In summary, a 1974 Washington quarter in fine condition is typically worth its face value, 25 cents. But if you find one in uncirculated condition or with a known error, it could be worth considerably more. Either way, it's a neat piece of history from an era when America was preparing to celebrate 200 years of independence. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. It became so popular that it replaced the standing Liberty quarter and continued to be minted every year since. By 1995, the coin had already been part of everyday American life for over 60 years. The 1995 P quarter was minted at the Philadelphia Mint, which is indicated by the small P mint mark on the front of the coin just next to Washington's ponytail. Over 1.1 billion of these quarters were struck that year, making it one of the most common modern quarters in circulation. Like all quarters made after 1965, the 1995 P Washington quarter is composed of a copper-nickel clad, not silver. This means that its intrinsic metal value is very low, and most of these coins are still only worth their face value of 25 cents in circulated condition. If you find a 1995 P quarter in fine or very fine condition, meaning it shows signs of wear, but the major details are still visible, it will still be worth only face value. However, coins that were never used and have been preserved in mint state condition can be worth a little more. In uncirculated grades such as MS-63 to MS-65, these coins can sell for around $1 to $5, depending on their luster, strike, and overall eye appeal. The most valuable examples are those graded MS-67 or higher by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC. These high-grade specimens are rare and can fetch $50 to $100 or more at auction. But keep in mind, such high-quality examples must be nearly perfect and free from marks, scratches, or dull areas. There are also some rare error coins from 1995 that can significantly increase a coin's value. Some of the known errors include off-center strikes, double-die obverse errors, and coins struck on the wrong planche. These types of errors are not common, but if you happen to find one, its value could range from a few $100s to several thousand, depending on the severity and uniqueness of the error. Always examine your coins closely with a magnifying glass or under proper lighting to look for anything unusual. In conclusion, the 1995 P Washington quarter is a very common coin, and in circulated condition, it is usually worth only its face value. However, uncirculated and error varieties can carry a premium for collectors. It's a coin that represents modern American coinage and is an essential part of any complete Washington quarter collection. If you come across one in exceptional condition or find a strange error, it may be worth having it professionally graded. Next up, the Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to honor George Washington's 200th birthday. It was originally intended as a one-year commemorative coin, but its design was so well received that it became the standard quarter in circulation. Fast forward to 1981, and the Washington quarter had already been through several changes, most notably the switch from 90% silver to copper-nickel, clad in 1965. The 1981 P quarter was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and it features the P mint mark on the obverse side of the coin, just to the right of Washington's ponytail. That year, the Philadelphia Mint produced over 601 million of these coins, which means they are still very common in circulation today. The composition of the 1981 P quarter is the standard clad formula used for modern quarters. An outer layer, made of 75% copper and 25% nickel, bonded to a pure copper core. The coin has a diameter of 24.3 millimeters and weighs 5.67 grams. On the obverse, it features the familiar portrait of George Washington, designed by John Flanagan, while the reverse shows the heraldic eagle with wings spread, holding arrows, and olive branches, a design that remained in use until 1998. Now let's talk about value. In circulated condition, the 1981 P Washington quarter is typically only worth its face value of 25 cents. It's a coin you can still find in pocket change or coin jars, and unless it is in uncirculated condition, it doesn't carry any special premium. However, collectors do look for high-grade examples in mint state. An uncirculated 1981 P quarter, graded MS-63, might sell for about $1 to $3. In MS-65 condition, which is considered gem quality, the coin could fetch around $5 to $10. The real value comes with coins graded MS-67 or higher, which are rare and highly sought after by collectors. These top-grade examples can sell for $50 to $100 or more, especially if certified by PCGS or NGC. There are also a few known era coins from this year that can raise a quarter's value significantly. Some 1981 P quarters have been found with off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or other striking errors. These can be worth anywhere from a few dollars to several hundred, depending on the severity and uniqueness of the error. Always inspect your coins carefully for anything out of the ordinary. In summary, the 1981 P Washington quarter is a common coin with high mintage, and in most cases it will only be worth face value. However, coins in exceptional uncirculated condition or with rare mint errors can be worth considerably more. If you happen to have one that looks flawless or has an unusual strike, it might be worth having it examined by a professional grading service. Next up, the Washington quarter has been a staple of American currency since 1932, originally designed to commemorate the 200th birthday of George Washington. By 1982, it had been in circulation for 50 years. However, that year brought some important changes in the way coins were produced. The 1982 D quarter was minted in Denver, as shown by the D mint mark on the obverse of the coin near Washington's ponytail. That year, the Denver Mint struck over 480 million quarters, which means the coin is still fairly common in circulation. One unique factor about the 1982 D quarter is that it was produced during a period of U.S. mint cost cutting. In 1982 and 1983, the mint did not release uncirculated mint sets, which made it harder for collectors to find high-quality examples of these coins. As a result, uncirculated 1982 D quarters in excellent condition are somewhat harder to come by than in other years. The composition of the 1982 D quarter is standard for modern quarters. It is made of a copper nickel clad, meaning the coin has a copper core with a nickel alloy outer layer. It weighs 5.67 grams and measures 24.3 millimeters in diameter. Now, let's talk about the black color appearance. Many people come across 1982 D quarters that look unusually dark or almost black. This is usually not due to a rare mint error, but rather environmental damage or long-term exposure to the elements. A black or dark-toned quarter may have been buried in soil, exposed to chemicals, or stored in poor conditions for decades. The dark color can also result from oxidation of the nickel layer. While these dark coins can look interesting, they usually do not increase the coin's value unless the toning is attractive, even, and naturally developed, something that collectors may appreciate in rare cases. As for value, a circulated 1982 D quarter, even with dark or black coloration, is usually worth just its face value of 25 cents. However, if you find one in uncirculated or mint state condition, especially graded MS-65 or higher, it can be worth more due to the difficulty of finding pristine examples from that year. In MS-63 condition, a 1982 D quarter might be worth around $2 to $4. In MS-65, values can rise to $10 to $20, and in MS-67 or higher, the coin could be worth over $100 depending on the quality and market demand. Rare mint errors from the 1982 D quarter series can also bring high value. These include off-center strikes, double dies, and missing clad layers. A missing clad layer could cause the coin to have a copper appearance on one side and might be mistaken for a blackened coin at first glance. Such errors can range from $50 to several hundred, depending on the severity and certification by a grading service. In summary, the 1982 D Washington quarter is a common coin, but it's still an important one to examine closely. Dark or black-toned examples are usually caused by environmental exposure and typically do not carry extra value unless they show natural and appealing toning. However, if you have a high-grade uncirculated version or a known mint error, it could be worth far more than face value. United States may appear like an ordinary piece of change, but for collectors and enthusiasts, every coin tells a story, and this one is no exception. Struck during a time of economic adjustment and, after significant changes to U.S. coinage, the 1974 dime is part of the long-running Roosevelt dime series, which began in 1946. The coin features the image of President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse or front of the coin. This design was chosen to honor Roosevelt's legacy and his critical role in founding the March of Dimes, a campaign to fight polio, a disease Roosevelt personally battled. His profile was created by John R. Sinek, the chief engraver of the United States Mint at the time. On the reverse side of the 1974 dime, you will see a torch flanked by an olive branch and an oak branch. These symbols stand for liberty, peace, and strength. The reverse design has remained unchanged since its introduction in 1946. The words, United States of America, one dime, and a pluribus unum surround the imagery, emphasizing unity and national identity. The 1974 Roosevelt dime was struck at 3 mints, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The Philadelphia mint coins have no mint mark. Denver mint coins are marked with a small D, and San Francisco mint coins bear an S. However, most San Francisco dimes from that year were proof coins, made specifically for collectors with extra care and a high-quality finish. In total, the mintage numbers for the 1974 dimes are quite high. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 471 million dimes, while the Denver Mint struck more than 568 million. The San Francisco Mint made over 2.6 million proof coins. Because of these high mintages, the 1974 dime is not considered rare in circulated condition. However, condition and certain mint errors can significantly affect value. In terms of composition, the 1974 dime is made from a clad composition. This means the coin has an outer layer of copper nickel bonded to a core of pure copper. It weighs 2.27 grams and has a diameter of 17.91 millimeters. The edge of the coin is reeded, giving it that familiar textured border. Now, when it comes to value, a standard 1974 Roosevelt dime in circulated fine condition typically holds face value, just 10 cents. However, coins in uncirculated condition, especially those that have been graded professionally, can be worth more. A 1974 dime in mint state 65 condition may fetch between $1 to $3 depending on the market and the mint mark. Proof versions from the San Francisco Mint can range from $2 to $10 if they are still in pristine, mirror-like condition. Collectors also seek out rare errors that may have occurred during production. Some 1974 dimes exhibit misstrikes, off-center, strikes, or double-die errors. These error coins can be worth anywhere from $25 to several $100s, depending on the nature and severity of the error. However, such coins are uncommon, and most 1974 dimes found in circulation are standard examples. Next up, the 1966 one-dime coin from the United States may look like a simple piece of everyday currency, but it holds a special place in American numismatic history. Let's explore the history, design, and potential value of this widely circulated, yet fascinating coin. The 1966 dime features the familiar profile of President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse or front of the coin. Roosevelt has appeared on the dime since 1946, shortly after his death in 1945. This choice was a tribute to his leadership and his founding of the March of Dimes, a campaign that raised money to fight polio, a disease Roosevelt himself suffered from. The design was created by John R. Sinnock, the chief engraver of the U.S. Mint at the time. On the reverse side of the 1966 dime, you'll see a torch in the center, flanked by an olive branch on the left and an oak branch on the right. The torch symbolizes liberty. The olive branch represents peace, and the oak branch stands for strength and independence. Surrounding these images are the inscriptions United States of America, E pluribus unum, and one dime. The year 1966 falls during a unique period in U.S. coinage history. Just a year earlier, in 1965, the U.S. Mint made a major change. It removed all silver from the dime, quarter, and half-dollar coins. This was due to rising silver prices and a coin shortage. As a result, the 1966 dime, like those minted after 1964, is made of a clad composition, an outer layer of copper-nickel bonded to a pure copper core. The coin weighs 2.27 grams, has a diameter of 17.91 millimeters, and features a reeded edge. Another important detail is that no mint marks were used on dimes in 1966. In fact, from 1965 to 1967, the U.S. Mint temporarily removed all mint marks from coins to discourage collectors from hoarding them. That means we can't tell which mint, Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, produced a particular 1966 dime. They are all indistinguishable in that respect. In terms of mintage, the production numbers were enormous. Over 1.38 billion Roosevelt dimes were struck in 1966. Because of this, the coin is very common, and most examples you'll find today have been in circulation for decades. So, what about value? In circulated condition, a 1966 dime is typically worth face value, 10 cents. However, coins in uncirculated condition, especially those that have been carefully preserved, can be worth a bit more. A 1966 dime in mint state 65, MS65, condition might sell for $1 to $3. If the coin is certified in an even higher grade, like MS67, it could fetch $10 to $20 or more, depending on market demand. There's also a special group of coins from this era known as special mint sets, or SMS coins. These were issued in place of proof sets from 1965 to 1967. The 1966 special mint set dimes are often more sharply struck, with better detail and smoother surfaces than regular circulation coins. These SMS dimes can sell for $2 to $15, and if you find one in pristine condition with deep cameo contrast, it might be worth $50 or more. Next up, let's begin with the design. Like all Roosevelt dimes since 1946, the 1980 D dime features the profile of President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse, the front, of the coin. Roosevelt was chosen for this denomination because of his leadership during the Great Depression and World War II, but also due to his close connection to the March of Dimes, a campaign dedicated to fighting polio, which Roosevelt personally battled. The portrait was created by John R. Sinnock, chief engraver of the U.S. Mint. On the reverse side of the coin, you'll find a classic American symbol, a lit torch flanked by an olive branch on the left and an oak branch on the right. These images represent liberty, peace, and strength, core values of the nation. The inscriptions include United States of America, E pluribus unum, and one dime. Now, let's talk about the mint and materials. The D mint mark on the 1980 D dime tells us it was struck at the Denver Mint. This coin is part of the copper-nickel-clad era, meaning it's made from an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. This composition replaced silver in 1965 due to rising metal costs. The coin weighs 2.27 grams, measures 17.91 millimeters in diameter, and has a reeded edge. In 1980, the Denver Mint produced a massive number of these coins, over 735 million dimes to be exact. Because of this high mintage, the 1980 D dime is very common, and most examples found in circulation today are worn and have low collector value. So what is a 1980 D dime worth today? In circulated condition, like the kind you might find in your pocket change, the coin is typically worth face value, just 10 cents. However, condition matters greatly in coin collecting. If your 1980 D dime is in uncirculated condition, that is, it has no signs of wear and retains its original mint luster. It may be worth a little more to collectors. A 1980 D dime in mint state 65, MS65 condition can sell for around $1 to $3, depending on the market. Coins graded higher, such as MS67 or above, are much harder to find and can command $10 to $30 or more at auctions, especially if they have strong eye appeal and are certified by a reputable grading service like PCGS or NGC. But there's something else collectors are always watching for: errors and varieties. While the 1980 D dime is not known for major errors, some examples with off-center strikes, double dies, or die cracks can exist. These error coins are rare but can be worth $25 to several $100s depending on the nature and clarity of the mistake. One other note: since this coin was made after 1964, it contains no silver, so even though it might have an attractive eye shine, it holds no intrinsic metal value beyond its copper and nickel content. Next up, the 1985 P. Roosevelt dime may appear like just another piece of everyday change, but this coin has its own unique story and numismatic value, especially when found in extra fine condition. Let's take a closer look at the history, design, and potential value of the 1985 P Roosevelt dime. This dime features the familiar image of President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the front, or obverse, of the coin. Roosevelt was chosen for the dime back in 1946, shortly after his death, in honor of his leadership through the Great Depression and World War II, and for his founding role in the March of Dimes, a campaign to fight polio. The portrait was designed by John R. Sinek, who served as the chief engraver of the United States Mint. On the reverse side, you'll see a torch in the center, symbolizing liberty, flanked by an olive branch on the left for peace and an oak branch on the right for strength. These classic elements are surrounded by the inscriptions United States of America, E Pluribus Unum, and One Dime. Now let's talk about the mint and composition. The P mint mark under the date indicates that the coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. In 1985, over 973 million Roosevelt dimes were produced at this mint alone, making the coin fairly common in everyday circulation. This dime, like others made after 1964, is composed of a copper-nickel-clad material. That means it has an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. The total weight is 2.27 grams, and the diameter is 17.91 millimeters with a reeded edge. Because the coin was made after 1964, it contains no silver, and therefore has no intrinsic metal value beyond its face value. However, coins in higher grades and well-preserved condition can still attract interest from collectors. So what is a 1985 P Roosevelt dime worth today in extra fine condition? In numismatic terms, extra fine refers to a coin that shows light, wear on the highest points of the design but still retains strong detail and some original mint luster. A 1985 P dime in this condition is generally worth a little above face value, usually around 15 to 30 cents depending on the market and demand. Coins in uncirculated or mint state condition, especially those graded MS65 or higher, can be worth more. A certified MS-65 example might sell for around $2 to $5, while those graded MS-67 or better can reach $20 to $40, especially if they have excellent eye appeal or full strike detail. What about errors or varieties? While the 1985 P dime is not widely known for major mint errors, there are occasional finds, such as off-center strikes, broad strikes, or doubled dies. These error coins can sell for $25 to over $100, depending on how noticeable and dramatic the error is. There are no rare varieties known for this date, but sharp-eyed collectors still keep watch for small mistakes that can boost a coin's value significantly. Next up, the obverse, or front side of the dime, features the left-facing profile of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, honoring the 32nd President of the United States. He led the country through the Great Depression and most of World War II. The coin also pays tribute to Roosevelt's work with the March of Dimes, a national effort to combat polio, a disease Roosevelt himself fought for much of his life. The designer was John R. Sinek, the chief engraver of the U.S. Mint at the time. On the reverse of the coin, you'll find a lit torch in the center, symbolizing liberty. On either side are an olive branch for peace and an oak branch, representing strength. These elements are surrounded by the inscriptions United States of America, A Pluribus Unum, and One Dime. This reverse design has remained unchanged since the series began in 1946. Now, here's where things get interesting. The 1967 Roosevelt dime has no mint mark. That's not a mistake. It was intentional. During the mid-1960s, the U.S. Mint temporarily removed mint marks from all coins as part of an effort to discourage coin hoarding. This happened in response to a coin shortage that started in the early 60s after the government stopped using silver in most coins. So, from 1965 to 1967, all dimes, quarters, and half dollars were struck without mint marks, regardless of whether they were made in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. As for the composition, the 1967 dime is a copper-nickel-clad coin. It has a pure copper core and an outer layer made of 75% copper and 25% nickel. It weighs 2.27 grams, has a diameter of 17.91 millimeters, and features a reeded edge. Now let's get to the value, specifically for a 1967 Roosevelt dime in extra fine XF condition. In this condition, the coin shows only light wear on the highest points. It retains strong details, though it may have lost some of its original mint luster. While it's definitely a better than average circulated coin, it is still considered common due to the high number of dimes struck in 1967, over 2.2 billion. In IRD, the current market, a 1967 Roosevelt dime in extra fine condition is typically worth 10 to 25 cents. While this is just slightly above face value, it's still appreciated by collectors trying to build complete date sets in decent condition. However, if you find one in uncirculated condition, or better yet, in a certified mint state grade like MS-65 or higher, it could be worth $1 to $5, depending on quality and demand. Coins with very high grades, such as MS-67 or MS-68, can be worth $20 to over $100, especially if they've been professionally graded by PCGS or NGC. And what about errors? There are some known errors and varieties from 1967. These include off-center, strikes, die cracks, and broad strikes. These error coins are much less common and can sell for $25 to several $100s, depending on the severity and eye appeal of the error. Next up, in this video, we're taking a closer look at the 1968 Roosevelt One Dime, a coin that often goes unnoticed in circulation, yet carries historical importance and collector interest. If you have a 1968 dime in fine condition, here's everything you need to know about its design, background, and current value. Let's begin with the coin's design. On the obverse, the front, you'll see a portrait of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who led the United States through the Great Depression and most of World War II. His profile has appeared on the dime since 1946, shortly after his death. In honor of his leadership and his association with the March of Dimes, a campaign to combat polio. The designer was John R. Sinek, the chief engraver of the U.S. Mint at the time. The reverse of the dime features a torch in the center, symbolizing liberty, flanked by an olive branch for peace and an oak branch for strength. Surrounding these symbols are the words United States of America, e pluribus unum, and one dime. This design has remained consistent for decades and remains an iconic part of U.S. coinage. Now let's talk about the coin's minting history. In 1968, Roosevelt dimes were produced at 3 U.S. mint locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. For the first time since the coin shortage of the 1960s, mint marks were reintroduced on circulating coins. You can find the mint mark just above the date on the obverse. If your 1968 dime has a D mint mark, it was struck in Denver. A 1968 dime with an S mint mark is a proof coin made in San Francisco, and these were not intended for circulation. If your coin has no mint mark, it was made in Philadelphia. In total, the U.S. Mint produced over 480 million dimes in Denver, about 900 million in Philadelphia, and just over 3 million proof coins in San Francisco. As for the composition, the AZ 1968 Roosevelt dime is made of copper nickel clad, which means it has an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. It weighs 2.27 grams, has a diameter of 17.91 millimeters, and features a reeded edge. Keep in mind that all dimes minted from 1965 onward do not contain silver, making their metal value relatively low. Now let's talk value, specifically for a 1968 Roosevelt dime in fine condition. Fine condition means the coin has moderate wear from circulation. The details in Roosevelt's hair and face are still visible but noticeably worn. In this condition, a 1968 dime usually holds face value, which is 10 cents. Because of the high mintage numbers and the lack of silver content, circulated coins from this year are still quite common. However, coins in better condition, such as extra fine, uncirculated, or mint state, can be worth more. A 1968 dime in MS-65 condition may be worth around $2 to $5, while coins in MS-67 or higher, especially those with full bands on the reverse torch, can bring in $20 to $50 or more, especially if certified by grading services like PCGS or NGC. There are also rare errors known for the 1968 dime. For example, some collectors have found off-center strikes, double dies, and clipped planchets. These error coins are rare and can sell from $25 to several $100 depending on the type and severity of the error.